107.7 The Pulse, 107.3 WEMJ, 12:06 is our time. That bright, bouncy music tells you that Coach Carol Phillips is in the house. And I cannot wait, folks, until you hear who she has as a guest today.
Yes, it's going to be a very exciting hour.
To get these two people on the same stage is just unbelievable. Both of them, they're two of the busiest people I know, and to get them in one studio at the same time.
Yes, the hour is going to be too short.
It is going to be too short. So I will be quiet. And Coach Carol, welcome back. Nice to see you again. And,
Thank you.
I know you've been busy since we convened a couple of weeks ago. So what is going on in your life?
Right, absolutely. So lots of CPR and first aid classes. So I just wanted to remind the listeners that we now offer the BLS, which is the healthcare clinical version of CPR AED, at Manchester Community College every Tuesday evening, and we are expanding into Nashua. So we do have a class available Monday evening in Nashua at Nashua Community College. And you can find all of our classes on our website. So go to askcoachcarol.com, click on CPR, and it'll give you a quick link right at the top of the page to all of our classes. In addition, we are continuing our series at the Arbors in Bedford, which is a benchmark community, helping healthcare professionals get continuing education credits. So we present on a variety of topics. And our next seminar, and they are breakfast seminars, so come and have some breakfast with us before our seminar, is Wednesday, October 17th from 8 to 9 a.m. Actually, breakfast starts around 7:45, so feel free to come at 7:45. And if you're interested in joining us, any healthcare professionals, join us and give us a call at 287-1330. So that's the number for the Arbors in Bedford, 603-287-1330. So we have a lot of fun monthly presentations on, like I said, a wide variety of topics that resonate with a wide variety of healthcare workers. So we're excited about that. But I want to jump right into joining with our guest today. We're kicking off a new series on one of my favorite topics, which is what companies are doing for their employees that help them earn the honor of being voted the best place to work. And, you know, it's all about what helps employees stay healthy and engaged, what makes them feeling a loyalty to their employer, what improves morale, and what keeps employees from jumping ship and going to work for someone else, which we know employee turnover can be very expensive.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And a couple weeks ago, I attended an event called Breakfast with the Best, which was put on by Business NH magazine. And it was just a wonderful event. They did an activity where they did like rotating roundtable discussions. And our guest today was one of the moderators. And we had such a great time discussing all the different ways companies can improve the workplace so that employees are healthier and more engaged, which obviously means they're more productive, which increases the bottom line. So our special guest today is Tom Raffio, President and CEO of Northeast Delta Dental, which was voted again as one of the best companies to work for. So welcome, Tom. So glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here. And the older I get, Ken, I always want to be around people with positive energy. So between you and Carol, Ken, it's so great to be in the studio. And I get to talk to you tomorrow, too.
You do. And you'll get mine. You got Carol's introduction today, and you'll get mine tomorrow.
There you go. So, but seriously, I think I love being around people that have passion, and both of you have passion for what you do. So thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome. So before we jump into this topic, I would just want to brag a little bit for you about Northeast Delta Dental. So part of this process is the company employees receive a survey. And a couple of the survey results for Northeast Delta Dental were that 97% of Northeast Delta Dental's employees agree under the category of my firm provides opportunities to socialize and celebrate special events, which employees love doing that. And then another one was the category of my manager respects my work-life balance, which that's crucially important for people to balance their home life and their work life. And at Northeast Delta Dental, 95% of the employees agreed with that statement, which is just absolutely wonderful and amazing. So before we jump into our topic, Tom, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit in your own words about Northeast Delta Dental.
Sure. It's a great company, not because I'm leading it, but because every employee colleague, there's over 200 of us, really have a passion for what we do, which is spreading oral health coverage. And as you all know, I think we have close to 875,000 people that have Delta Dental coverage, and considering that there's only 3.2 million people in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, that's obviously a dominant market share. But we do other things. We're known for giving back to the community, and that's really one of the things I'm most proud of, is we give to every organization that makes a meaningful request to us, both from an oral health perspective, but also other causes such as mental health and food insecurity and homelessness. So our primary business is spreading dental benefits, but we also have a software company called Previsor. It's a package that we give to all of our dentists, so that if you go in and get a cleaning now and you're covered by Northeast Delta Dental, depending on your score, you may be entitled to a third or fourth cleaning a year. So we try to be very innovative. We've also added a vision product. It's called Delta Vision, and we also own a general agency which allows us to expand into to group life insurance. So we do all the core business functions really well. But what makes it, I think, a special place is that between myself and probably 60 other employees, we populate about 60 not-for-profit boards in New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont, because we know our responsibilities are to give back to the community. We've been around about 55 years. Dental insurance, really, people don't realize this, but until the 70s, there really was no such thing as dental insurance. So we've really come a long way in those 55 years, and we're right here in Concord, and we have satellite offices in Saco and in Burlington, because we are a tri-state company, and we're just pleased that we're able to be a mainstay part of Concord and New Hampshire in general.
Terrific. And before we go any further, if you want to go to their website, it's nedelta.com, as in Northeast Delta Dental, nedelta.com, and the phone number is 603-223-1199. So this topic about creating a culture, and we'll talk a little bit about culture too, at a work site where employees feel engaged and they're eager to vote their company best to work for. I like to think of it as, a lot of the things fall under two different categories, the tangibles or the intangibles. And so we're going to start talking a little bit about the tangibles first, and then get into the intangibles, which some companies struggle a little bit with, as far as really noticing what intangibles resonate with employees that really helps them stay engaged. And I remember at the Breakfast for the Best, when we did that wonderful roundtable exercise, there was a gentleman sitting at my table that was talking about how his company is really trying hard to create a culture where they could be voted best to work for. And they were trying to get some tips at the breakfast. So why don't we start with some of the more tangible things, as far as, like, for example, benefits, Tom?
Awesome.
And what does Delta Dental do?
Sure. So the gentleman that was with us, he was definitely taking copious notes. And I think one point there is that for many years, people thought that the human side of the enterprise, you couldn't have metrics, unlike, say, financial balance scorecard and things like that. But there are definitely things you can do, but it also has to be authentic. So the evolution of the best company to work for, we've been on the list for 8 years, and actually +2 in the Hall of Fame. So I've seen sort of an evolution from companies being on the list because they have the basic benefits, so the tangible, as you described it. So obviously we have a very generous dental plan. We have a very solid medical plan through Tufts Freedom. We have long-term disability. We have life insurance programs. We have the 401k with a company match. So we do all of that, what I would call the financial safety net that a company should have. But now, to me, that only gets you into the arena. It's really the intangibles and making employees feel like they're part of the strategy, which separates now the best company. So like I said, 10 or 15 years ago, the the companies on the list were companies that basically were able to codify that they had all the core benefits that I just described. The companies that are now on the list get into the intangibles. So let me start off with one very simple one that anyone can do. I do a lot of handwritten notes in this kind of era of email and everything else, and giving someone a handwritten note thanking them for their performance doesn't cost you anything other than your time. So before I go home at night, I write a lot of little notes, and when you give someone a handwritten note these days, it's like giving them $1 million.
Right, absolutely.
And it's definitely intangible. The other thing I do is we give out, and I write a handwritten note for everybody's birthday as well, and there's a little check that goes with it. But I also try to write a little something, that I know about the employee. So those types of things really, assuming you have the basic core benefits, what then separates you and enables you not to have any turnover is these intangibles that I'm starting to describe.
And Tom, before we go any further, you just casually mentioned something that to you is probably second nature, but to some companies it's foreign to them, and that is you include something in the note about the person. And that is really invaluable because that makes a person feel like, well, I am not just a number here. They do know me. They did listen to me when I mentioned that. So can you go into that just a little bit more?
So when we onboard new employees, we have something called Coffee with a Coach, which basically they're meeting with me informally over coffee. And what I try to do is intersperse it with veteran employees who bring their sort of longer-term perspective. And during that process, I ask the new employees and the veteran employees for updates on sort of what they do outside of Northeast Delta Dental. And I have a really good memory, so I remember those things. I take a lot of notes. So, for example, one of our newer employees had a plethora of dogs and cats. And anytime I see her, I say, how are the dogs and cats doing? So simple things like that. And you can capture that information at these informal, what we call coffee with the coaches. And the other thing you can do with those sessions, in addition to getting that sort of behind-the-scenes knowledge about employees' lives, you can also weave in, strategy. Because another part of the intangible is employees feeling that they understand where the company is heading. So to give you a pretty significant example of that, when the Affordable Care Act was passed back in 2010, there was some doubt whether a standalone dental insurance company would survive. It was one of the unintended consequences of the Affordable Care Act. So instead of having people worry about it, I just got everybody in a room and I said, there is a possibility that we may have to partner with a medical carrier or whatever, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure we can continue to thrive. Well, employees, they were so much more confident. They weren't worried about what they were reading in the press. And of course, the rest is history. We got onto the exchanges. We're thriving in the retail market, which is why we do things like Northeast Delta Dental Stadium, which allows us to get the oral health message. And so employees, having heard what our strategies are, understand why we get so involved in the community. And so what I'm sort of known for, and Ken knows this, is connecting the dots, for my employee colleagues. And those are some of the little things. Again, it doesn't cost a company any money to spend time with your employees explaining the strategies.
Right, absolutely.
And I know Tom has a great memory. There's no question about his memory. He mentioned his memory. You should hear him reeling off batting averages. Really. He's right up there with J-Dog.
I was going to say, another J-Dog.
4 years in a row, Chris Davis, 247.
247, 247, 247, 247.
That's it. What a great show we have with Coach Cail Phillips, who is here every other week at this time, and joined today by one of the leading in terms of businesses in the state and in New England, Northeast Delta Dental, and their president and CEO, Tom Raffio. And, not only are we graced by two great individuals, but two authors as well. Tom, you have a relatively new book out about mindfulness.
Yes, and it's actually related to this because when we were the Best Company 2 years ago, we had a breakfast meeting before the official breakfast meeting where we coalesced with all of the other leaders of the best companies. And one of the questions I asked my colleagues, these are the 10 best companies to work for New Hampshire. So what do you worry about? And their concern universally was that they felt that their employee colleagues were being stressed out by multitasking, and I had made my own empirical observations walking around our campus at Northeast Delta Dental, where I would see employees, doing emails and trying to talk with a customer on the phone at the same time. So we all kind of delude ourselves into thinking that we're being productive. So I thought, oh my God, we really have to start focusing. So I brought in Professor Annabelle Burrell to do some training around mindfulness, and mindfulness is essentially being present, communicating effectively, listening effectively, and then there's an aspect of meditation, how you in your own way, how you would do that. So I brought in Annabelle, and she basically transformed our company. And we've had people who write to me saying, without Annabelle's training, their home life was becoming a disaster. So now that's all been cleared up. And of course, if you're happy and solid at home, you're bringing your best person, to the office. So I said to Annabelle, we should write a book on this before, because I didn't want mindfulness to turn into the latest fad, the latest
Right.
this flavor of the month, whatever. So we wrote this book together where I codified all of the employee experiences at Northeast Delta Dental, how mindfulness was used to improve their lives both at home and at the office. And Annabelle brought in the science behind it, and it's been going really well, because mindfulness is definitely a topic that everybody's talking about. Dan Harris, a CNN news person, wrote a book recently called Feeling 10% Better, or a word like that, and basically it's all about mindfulness. So I wanted to make sure that we had a mindfulness book that was short enough so people would read it, practical enough so they could see the results, but also that there is in fact some science behind it. And you can get that at Gibson's Mindfulness, A Better Me, A Better You, A Better World, or on Amazon. But I would prefer local shopping, wouldn't you, Carol?
Absolutely.
Gibson's.
Buy local.
There you
Buy
go.
local. And when we come back from our first break, I would love to talk a little bit more about getting the message out to business owners of why multitasking is not a good thing and why mindfulness is not going to cost them in productivity.
Just the opposite.
Exactly.
Improves
Very
it.
much the opposite.
Well, we will take that aforementioned first break right now. 12:23 is our time. Coach Carol Phillips in the house with Tom Raffio, President and CEO of Northeast Delta Dental.
In 1995, we had 1.5 people. We now have about 70. And you all know that when you're recruiting IT professionals, they're the ones that they're in constant demand. None of our IT people leave. They're not the highest paid. Why? Because they can bike to work. They have bike groups. They have walk groups. Their facility at our 2 Delta building is the best. They're quietly doing their programming. They have the work-family balance that you described earlier, which is so important. And so in terms of those of you that are listening to me, those additional sort of little benefits actually are what link and keep the employee engaged and staying at Northeast Delta. We have virtually no turnover, and it's not because we're the highest paid company. We're not.
Because that's not what employees are always
correct.
looking for. And you say the term work-life balance, which we hear all the time, but basically it is my employer cares that I have a life, that I have a personal life, that there's times I need time off, and I'm not going to be made to feel guilty about it.
Correct. And other examples of that, and I know both of you have come into our receptionist, for example, and she would be happy, Suzanne, for me to tell this story, but she is actually was recently featured in the Union Leader, so I guess it is public. She's getting up there and basically is the best receptionist in the United States, but she wants to kind of phase out, and work like 3 or 4 days a week, and then eventually 0 as she completes. So she approached us and said she'd like to, get on a 3 or 4 day work week for the next couple of years, and then eventually 2, 1, and then totally retire at, whatever age at that point that she is. And so you can get that work-family balance by, working, with your employee colleagues, because why wouldn't we want the best receptionist in the United States? So for every Friday now for the next 2 or 3 years, someone else, will cover for her. But Monday through Thursday, we have the best receptionist. So that's the type of work-family balance. And also for my CEO colleagues out there, I just want to say that I'm also reality-based. I'm not pie in the sky. I realize there are times when, your company is doing a system conversion and you need all hands on deck. And so over the years, we've had a couple of major systems conversions where probably for a year, many employees, worked 6 days a week, but they knew it was for the investment in the company and for their professional development. So they were happy for a short period of time to work extra, knowing that it was going to position the company to be successful. And ironically, 2 of the best years on these employee survey metrics were years where we were doing systems conversions and people were actually working more, but they knew they were doing it, ultimately for their benefit. Right. So it's not like when we say work-family balance, I always like to say this, we're not running a country club, but if employees feel valued, they're then going to deliver, beautiful external service, to our customers, and then it's a beautiful cycle because then those customers renew with Northeast Delta Dental, and then we continue to grow. And just as an aside, in our business, which is group insurance, the renewal cycle is most insurance companies retain about 80% of their business, and you have to renew it every year. Our renewal rate is like 99%.
Wow.
And which means people, and we're not the lowest price again, because we pay our dentists fairly and so forth. So by another part of retaining business is obviously if your customers are getting the best service because you have happy employees, you're going to retain business. And of course, long-term business is more profitable than, constantly, trying to get new business after you've lost business.
Yeah. And, what you mentioned about times where you have to have all hands on deck, that links right back to if employees are, happier with their employer, they're more engaged, they're going to jump in with both feet and say, hey, I'm ready. And you talked earlier about keeping them in the loop of what's going on with the company, how it's growing, what you see in the future, where some companies it's, only management knows what's going on and the non-management employees don't. So it's really hard for them to be invested in the hard times.
Because they don't see what the 5-year plan is. They don't see why we have to make $1 million investment to get onto the public exchange, or we need to, renew the claim system, and they don't see why, you'd have to work a few weekends here and there. But when they do see that, they're happy to.
Right.
They're happy to because they know it's ultimately for their benefit too. They'll have a position, 20 years from now. Another thing I like to say to my employees, long after the current group is gone, 50 years from now, won't you love it if Northeast Delta Dental is still giving back to the community?
Right.
And they all say, yeah. I said, well, then we have to make together we have to make, the right decisions now.
Yes, that's another key part is companies being connected to community work. So,
and we know Northeast Delta Dental is very connected to community work, yes, for sure. But Tom, I know, from a listener's perspective, listening to you two talk about Northeast Delta Dental, I can imagine going on in the minds of some of our listeners is, I wonder if they have any openings there. What are the opportunities at Northeast Delta Dental?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because when I do these coffee with the coaches, with the new employees, many times they say, for years, I've just been applying, even though there may not be positions, and eventually there's a position. Our opportunities tend to be, as I mentioned earlier, in technology, but also human customer service. We still have the best human customer service. So when you call our 800 number, you don't get a navigation menu. You don't get a computer telling you to, put in your social security number or whatever.
You're not calling the Philippines.
Correct. You're getting a person right here in Concord that within 15 seconds, you're getting a human being. And this is a true 15 seconds. This is not like, 4 minutes of navigation and then 15 seconds. This is 15 seconds, human being that knows what they're talking about. So we spend a great deal of time hiring, customer service reps, and they tend to be one of two types. They either people with dental experience that we train on customer service skills, or maybe that's someone that might have worked like in an LL Bean call center or something like that, and then those people have the customer service experience, and we train them on dental terminology. So those are the two fields, and people can go on our websites and our website and see the positions. We don't have a lot of positions open, but they tend to be either in technology or human customer service.
And that website again is
simple, anydelta.com.
Very simple, and you can listen to Tom's radio shows as well.
Exactly. They're not. They may not be as passionate as Carol's, but I have like 6 or 7 years of shows on the radio section of our website.
And they're great. Northeast Delta Dental Radio. And we'll throw in a plug every Saturday, 9:05 a.m. and Sunday at 7:05. Tom has his own radio show. It's a great show, and it's a longer running show than Cail and Company on this station.
And what I found is that...
On 107.7 The Pulse.
The Pulse.
Yes,
there
right,
you go.
Right.
What I found, Carol, is that like you and I are really connected, but there's so many not-for-profits out there that need to have an opportunity to have their mission explained. So, like, for example, last week's show was a gentleman named Rob Levy who was talking about the trail system that connects all the museums in New Hampshire, and that's something that even I wasn't aware of, and so I gave him an opportunity to explain that. So it provides a real community service, and I get this comment a lot, which is, well, you weren't the least expensive dental insurance company, but I love the way you promote this particular not-for-profit on your radio show, or my kids played soccer on your soccer field, so thus we decided to go with Northeast Delta Dental. Now, that's not why we do all that stuff, but it certainly definitely, helps, having that type of culture, because I have found that people want to do business with organizations that they like.
Right, and who give back.
And who give back,
Yep.
correct.
We're chatting with Tom Raffio, President and CEO of Northeast Delta Dental, and our own coach, Cail Phillips, author of 52 Simple Ways to Health. And Tom, one of the top entrepreneurs in the country. 107.7 The Pulse, 107.3 WEMJ, having a great hour with Coach Cail Phillips, Tom Raffio, President and CEO of Northeast Delta Dental. 12:46 is our time. Coach Cail, take it away.
Oh, well, we are quickly approaching the end of our hour here. And so for our last segment here, Tom, I would love to ask you to give us a little quick and dirty list of some of the other tangibles that Northeast Delta Dental offers to the employees to make it one of the best places to work. But then save a little time at the end for some of the other intangibles that company owners often struggle with.
So starting with the last part first, so simple things like prior to everybody leaving for Thanksgiving or the December holidays, I walk around in both of our campuses at 1 Delta and 2 Delta and talk to every individual employee and say, what are you doing for Christmas? What are you doing for Thanksgiving? Talk about their family. So again, that doesn't cost a dime. That's just time, and they love it. And the other thing, quite candidly, in our business, there's a lot of year-end activity. So whereas maybe some other companies, more people are taking vacation in December and November, we can't really do that because a lot of our business is 1/1. So there are a lot of employees working hard during the holiday season. So they really appreciate the fact that I walk around and talk with them, and so they understand that. And there's a conversation with each one of them, so they know how much I appreciate the fact that even during this holiday period where we're all kind of stressed out doing Christmas shopping and things like that, that they still are able to focus on the task at hand. So that, for example, doesn't cost anything. On some of the more tangible things, one of the things we've talked about is we have a fitness center which doesn't cost employees anything. Obviously, it costs us money to put the machines in. We found that we need a cheerleader coach in the fitness center, so we hired Coach Tom Walton, who's pretty well known in the Concord area. So he's like the wellness cheerleader. But we're able to reimburse employees for their exercises. So there's a way that they track their exercises, and then once a quarter I go around and give out checks. So for example, all kidding aside, when I'm done with this program, I'm going back to Delta Dental and I'm passing out the fitness check. So it's not so much we're giving them $100 for exercising, it's the fact that I'm going around and saying, thank you for keeping yourself well, and then I hand them the check. So in that case, it's a combination of a slight monetary benefit, but again, that conversation. So
yeah, it's the intangible.
It's intangible, and then like in writing people's birthday cards, we do put a combination. There's a modest check, but I hear from employees they love the fact that I'll write down a little sentence about the work that I know they're doing. Now we're the perfectly sized company, like 200 employees. It's big enough so we have all the resources necessary to have the best technology and the best human services, but I also know all 200 people. So in the birthday card, I can actually, write something about them. So the combination of having a core set of benefits, medical, dental, vision, 401k plan, with these intangibles that don't really cost a lot of money, what it does require is some time. So when I prepare for all the coffee with the coaches and these all-employee meetings, I spend a lot of time to make sure that I'm totally prepared. So the leaders of the company really have to invest a lot of time in understanding their employees and the little specifics about the employees, and then it comes in a natural way. And then, of course, since I've been there since 1995, I know just about everything about everybody, so it makes it a little easier because I've been around for over 20 years.
And the little things are not the little things with employees, right?
As I said at the top, you writing a handwritten note, it's like you give someone $1 million. The other thing that I found is the gift of time. So when we get an award such as being number 2 best company, we do give folks an extra day off around the holiday period of time, and people, it's like the gift of the work-family balance. It's like giving employees $1 million, giving that extra day that they can be with their family. And the little secret out there is then they work even harder leading up to that extra day because they still have to get their work done. They know that, and they want to make sure that they fulfill all of their professional obligations so they can take the extra day.
Right, absolutely. And I tell business leaders, feed your employees every now and then. There's just something primal about breaking bread and providing that benefit for them. And an employer might say, well, it's going to cost me X amount, to buy lunch. Well, you know what? It's going to come back to you many, many times over because they're going to appreciate it. They're going to feel valued. They're going to go back to their desks and say, oh, wow, this really energized me. I'm going to work harder. Exactly.
It's those informal situations, and then we do the traditional summer picnic on our soccer field, and people are well fed, and there's dancing and all that. And then we do, unlike some companies now, we do the traditional holiday party in December, and I realized there was the whole alcohol thing, but we have that under control. People can stay at the hotel, and we give out the tickets. So that's kind of an excuse that company uses now, because we really feel that type of old time traditions also really kind of keep us as a family. And that's one of my challenges as a CEO of a company that's now a $380 million company, is keeping the soul of a small company and family, as we grow into a national, pretty big, a big company in New Hampshire certainly, and then a company that also has a national scope now with our Previsor software company. And I know we're running out of time, but I did want to get back to that point about multitasking and how the studies and people that are interested, I can get you the source on all this. But for my book, put together a lot of analysis, and basically the mega data and from Gallup suggest actually that the employees actually make fewer errors and are less stressed when they unitask instead of multitask. So that's the term I like to use now. Focus, unitask, don't multitask, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why I love to ski, because when you're skiing fast down, you gotta be focused. And so that's the analogy I use, be present. And so there's now data which suggests while you think when you're multitasking you're being more efficient, you're actually creating more errors and creating more stress.
Right, absolutely. So, Tom, what would you say in our last minute here, where the clock's ticking, unfortunately, what would you say to business leaders when they say, oh, man, I'm juggling so much, how am I possibly going to spend time one-on-one with my employees?
That investment will pay off 100-fold. As I mentioned, a simple example, when we do systems conversions every 7 or 8 years, and I need folks to work six or 7 days a week for 4 or 5 months, they're happy to do it because you've built that trust. So
there's that relationship. That
relationship and that investment in them is key, because then they'll walk on fire for you.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, this has just been an amazing hour. Congratulations to you and Northeast Delta Dental for this amazing award. And thank you so much for sharing all this great information that can be of such value to so many companies.
And thank you for the passion and getting this topic out there, because I really think the rising tide helps everybody. And if every company in New Hampshire could be on the best company list, it helps us all.
I agree. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. And thank you, Kim.
It's been a great hour with Tom Raffio, President and CEO of Northeast Delta Dental, and Coach Cail Phillips, who won't return until November the 1st.
That's right. 3
Next
weeks
month.
instead
Oh,
of,
no.
right. I already had a prior commitment 2 weeks from today, so I will be back in 3 weeks, continuing on this wonderful topic.
So see you next month.
See you next month.
Next month, yes. The time will weigh heavy. And how can folks get in touch with you, Coach Cail?
They can go to askcoachcarol.com, or they can call me directly at 603-321-2750.
All right. Thank you both for a great hour. Much appreciated.
Thanks,
Thank
Ken.
you, Ken.
And
Thank you,
Tom
Carol.
will talk again tomorrow.
You will.
At 2:05. 2:05 Live.
2:05 Live.
J-Dog says.